Oh, 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 I'm gonna shut that fan off. Anyway, welcome to probably the last review in this apartment for reasons. But it's something I've been putting off because I wasn't sure what to say about the Creator Max 3D printer by FlashForge, because they sent it to me, and this is my first 3D printer. And I've decided I need to talk about the hardware, obviously. But this video is going to be for people who have never 3D printed and they want to know if they can get into it. Well, how hard is it to 3D print, Zeos? So I'm going to tell you exactly how hard it is to 3D print. But first we're going to level the bed. So tools, level. It was a relatively simple assembly, by the way. You had to mount this. It was very strangely packed. There's an unboxing video, which I'll link in the description, where like this entire inside was filled with foam and I couldn't figure out how to manipulate the pieces out. It was like a puzzle. You know what those puzzles are like. I'm going to get the special sheet for build plate leveling. And there are new printers that will auto level, where they just go and they touch and then they, because what happens is, I thought I was completely wrong. I thought the entire head was gonna go up and down, but it's just the build surface goes up and down and the actual print heads move, which is something I was not aware of how that worked. That's actually, there's 3 knobs here. And if you could just barely slide that under there, you're good. So hit next. So you're thinking about 3D printing, are you? Actually, I'm gonna save a lot of other people some time. If you already know how to 3D print, this printer is pretty phenomenal from what the people who have seen me try to use it have seen. Because this came to me right around the dawn of the COVIDs, and it's been real hard to get friends to come over, mostly because I told them not to help with things. There we go. Slide it under there, now the bed's leveled. It's spring-loaded knobs, 3 of them. So next, final level adjustment. Is there one more? Is it just center? Oh, it's a little tight, actually. I gotta loosen all of them. There we go. Finish. Okay. So basically, I've been learning 3D printer on live stream. I had to hook it up maybe 3 or 4 times. A couple of my friends who knew things about things joined, and from everyone else's reviews and everyone else's knowledge, this is a very good 3D printer. So if you're interested, if you're a knowledgeable person, you're done. You can get wonderful final products out of it. And I'm going to keep picking this one up as the example of a final product, because this is one of the default models that it comes with. I'm going to test that. It's actually got a pretty fast display. It's not like, it can lag if you're dragging down, but just pop through different things. Let's see, test files. And it actually shows you, let me see if I can get my camera off and actually, like it shows you, you could see that little cylinder is this cylinder. So there you go. There's a lot of reflection in this. I got him wearing my Rick and Morty shirt, or else it would look unfashionable. So let's see, we have PG right, because it's a dual extruder, which is not like common. Common printers only have one nozzle and you print out one color. And like this is one color, this wouldn't need a dual extruder. I have attempted things with the dual extruder though, and it has failed spectacularly, and it's not the printer's fault. See, we're gonna get into a little bit of 3D printing theory, which I know most people reviewing something like this are not going to go into, because they're just professionals and they do this all the time, and you know the basics. If you're watching this video and you know the basics of 3D printing and you understand it, you've used it before, it's great. Go out and buy it. However, I'm here to sort of not scare people away, but warn you. 3D printing is like playing an instrument. Do you know how to play the clarinet? No, but you hit the buttons on it and then you blow in it and it's music. 3D printing is exactly the fucking same. And I found that out the hardest of ways. All right, the hardest, like here's this. I ended up printing out a waifu because I thought that would be interesting, which I can provide the model for this. I think I have it saved. But there were a couple failings here and things I would change. Let me explain. A 3D printer is just a printer. It does what you tell it to do. And what I didn't know about this whole process is, well, you get a model, and you don't just feed a model into this, you gotta feed the model you get into a slicer. And this comes with a slicer. FlashForge does provide. I'm going to put the cap on this because it's a little bit noisy, those fans. So let's do that. It goes basically here, this slides in here, and then you squeeze the back together. That's a little better, but that's noisy as hell. But I'm gonna tell it to print PLA left, print, so it could be doing something while we're talking. Because I'm pretty much done with the hardware. It's got a magnetic door. The bed's heated, the two things are extruder heated, preheat them. It's relatively quiet and smooth. I know there are different drivers you can get from motors that'll be even quieter. Like my friend who obsesses in 3D printing is like, you gotta hear this. And it just makes no sound because the steps are like infinitely microscopic. It's cooling off the right extruder, but the left extruder is heated up. So let me see, where do I start with 3D printing? So you wanna buy a 3D printer. Let me tell you about the world of 3D printing. Infinite things are possible. Someone made these for me a while back. And these are just 3D printed caps for, I think, the M1060s. And I used them for the longest time. They just put my logo down and they print it out, and it's great. It's great. Now, if I'm gonna use a 3D printer, because this was the biggest problem with me is, well, what are you gonna do with a 3D printer, Zios? My brother and I used to have this conversation all the time. Because, you know, I'm talking about from the dawn of 3D printing. It's like, oh my God, that'd be so cool. I can't wait to make. And my family sort of has wood tools, and my grandfather was he was a carver. He was a carve figurines and things. Well, not that kind of figurines. Actually, kind of like that figurine. So maybe it's in my blood. So whenever I'm like, oh, I need a thing, I'd get some cutting board and some wood tools and some drills, and I would make whatever thing I needed. So when you really sat down, I was like, what do I need a 3D printer for? And everyone's like, oh, I'd made a toothbrush holder. And it only took 14 hours to print. And I'm like, that doesn't seem like you're using the fucking capabilities of this sort of a system. And even when I reviewed the Mad Dogs, the Alpha Dogs, Mr. Speaker's Alpha Dogs, which had 3D printed back cups, I assumed because of the magic of the fucking 3D printer that it would have impossible shapes. One of the wonderful things about a 3D printer is like this here. This is, again, this looks like a toothbrush holder. In fact, if you watch my unboxing channel, this is what I used to just stick my knife in. So it's a knife holder. But this, while being solid completely on the outside with a base and solid and smooth on the inside, all this around here is hollow. Like you can't 3D form something like that without like millions of dollars of machinery to like suck form things out. So that's remarkable that it can do that. Now in a headphone application, which is the reason I specifically said, hey, yes, I'd love to review your 3D printer, because I know when I have a free time and I'm not completely throwing my life into a car and driving back and forth for 4 hours, I would love to just 3D model real quick, thank you, 3D model real quick, a normal headphone that exists, or a driver, and then build something that has chambers and valves and things that you can't possibly get a drill and make happen. I want to make impossible things. That's what a 3D printer can do. But here's the issue with 3D printing. It's like learning a clarinet. No one hands you, you know, I'm trying to think of, here's an easel and a paintbrush. Paint. Like no one's Bob Ross from the start. I mean, you could be a talented person. But the things I've learned, and the thing I'm going to warn you about, is the curve. And there is a curve. And if you don't have a friend or friends, multiple friends, that all know how to 3D print and can explain the ins and outs of things to you, then you gotta find a forums and you gotta watch a ton of YouTube videos. Because when I was talking about, it's not hardware. The hardware will do anything you want. I have not had a single hardware issue with this printer except for the fact I tried to yank one of the things out and then I tried to feed it, because you have to feed the filament through to get it started. And I I forget what I did wrong. If I had them crisscross, I tried to pull it out. Bad news bears happened, and I had to disassemble the entire head assembly and pull out like a wad of bad and then put it back together. And that was actually relatively easy. You're not gonna find, there's one little note, this Creator Max is their newest revision, but the actual head assembly is the exact same as some of their older models. So you may not find a specific video from FlashForge on their YouTube to disassemble the head, the dual extruder head in the Creator Max, but you'll find it for their other units, which I don't have a list of them. We'll go over the accessories this comes with also. But let me explain how 3D printing works. This is it. This is the main go. And we're printing another one of these, by the way, because I know it works perfectly. It'll be done in, it says 5 minutes, and I don't believe you. It's sketchy. 3D printing involves a 3D model. You get a model, or of whatever you want. Woman, beautiful woman is the model. Then you import that from whatever format it is, from wherever you get it, into a program called a slicer. And the slicer's job is now your job. And I'm sure per printer, per print head, per environment, per this, the filament. And this is the stuff that was sent to me by FlashForge. There's currently a red FlashForge brand filament on the back. But my friend was like, nah, man, nah, atomic filament's the way to go. So I bought atomic is the blue one, and the FlashForge stuff is the red stuff. And I can tell you off the bat, I do believe this is not like headphone cables or speaker wires. Better filament means better prints. Like you could tell the blue is the expensive atomic one, and the red is like the oof, a little bit harder FlashForge ones. Back to what I was saying. The slicer is where you have to learn to play the flute, because the slicer takes whatever 3D model you have and literally cuts it up. And then the problem is, and I didn't know this was a thing, how big a slice? How much should it try to print per level? What temperature should your extruder be at? When it gets higher off the bed, should it slow the movement of the head so that it's not just flinging all over the place? All of these things matter. All these things affect how the print comes out. Now this print here, while it didn't come out terrible, like it would be up to me to say to the slicing program, yeah, see that 3D model? Raise it up off the bed like 1/8 of an inch and just put little stalks to support it. Because then you have to do that. You have to tell it where the support stalks are that you break off. She was covered in like a weird, it looked like a horror show. She had like a branch grabbing her face. And you can determine if there's more or less of that. And if you put her off the bed, that I wouldn't have this problem where her legs are literally, like I tried to break this off, but it's just trying to touch, but it doesn't work. I would have had to have known. It's those things that you have to experiment to understand. I have not had the time to experiment with this printer, or not even the printer. I believe the printer can do just about anything, but I've not had the time to experiment with, and there are pay-for slicers that apparently do a much better job than like all the default ones. But you'd still have to figure out, okay, using this particular filament, which this is Atomic Sunset PLA, which is very pretty, by the way. It's got a sheen to it. Using this filament in this size nozzle, I have to set exactly, 206 degrees Celsius for the extruder, and then make the levels exactly this thick and feed at this rate to get a perfect print. And that is just, that's why forums exist, because there's no way anyone could, you could spend all day and just print out little test prints. What I would end up doing, because I haven't done this and I have no one telling me what to do. Well, I did, but I would end up just printing little boxes and squares, maybe 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter. And I would have each one of those. See, I don't think I could set it. I don't think you could set the slicer to print with different attributes for different things on a single print. You'd have to switch it out every time. How's it going in there? Oh, that's nice. It does sound like it's talking to a robot. So yeah, when I, like this print here, I know exactly what the problem is. The card comes with 3 models. The actual 3D printer comes with an SD card. It loads on the side here. And this sticker that's pointing down shows the 3D, shows the card backwards. So I tried to rip off the card to show it going in correct direction, and it just tore off. So bad. But this printer comes with SD card and 3 models. This twice, one that says ABS, one that says PLA, since I have all PLA stuff. Actually, I do have ABS. I think the black is ABS Pro, yeah. The Atomic ABS Pro is what I bought in black. And I haven't wired it in because you have to go and push the old stuff out, feed the new stuff in, and then you could use different materials. And we gotta talk about materials for a little bit too, because this dual extrusion thing for 2 different colors is almost irrelevant in my mind. But the dual extruder thing for other reasons, that's when it gets interesting, because that's when those impossible shapes I'm talking about really comes into it. What was I saying? Where was I even? So once you've got your model and you've sliced it in whatever slicer, and I'm probably gonna end up paying like the $150 license for whatever the most amazing slice program there is out there, because that will just give you, it's a little bit hard to navigate the one that comes with FlashForge. I had to dig to get to those settings where it determines for an entire print, like what's going on. And I think if I had a forums, I'm sure FlashForge has a forums, which I will either link or you can just find it in Google, where you could just find out, hey, I'm using this filament and I'm using this printer with this size nozzle. What are the settings you guys use? It's not like a TV where you literally can't copy someone's settings from one TV to another and have it look the same, because every panel is different. Every 3D printer is pretty fucking identical. The only thing that would change is the height above sea level and maybe the ambient air temperature, which 3D printers like to be a little bit warm. Heated bed is an important thing. So once you've sliced the thing up and you've told it the layer thickness, the speed, the amount of supports you need, if it's gonna go slower as it goes up, then you have to bring it in and hit print. And that's when you wait, because like I started printing this, now it says print time. I was saying print time already. Wow, why doesn't it say remaining? Usually it says remaining, but now it's telling me it's counting up. So I guess it's like fine. Let's talk about the materials, because I was unaware. If I could find the website that just explains all the 3D printing materials, because PLA is like the basic one. ABS is stronger, but harder to print. Like it has to actually heat up, I think. And it actually also gives out fumes. Some of these, you need to have like a well-ventilated area or you could choke to death. So there's things you gotta know about things like that. But there's also like rubber. Like you could literally print this and make it a flexible rubber. Like I didn't know that was a thing. And the ones that really interest me, and especially for the dual extruder, if you're thinking about a dual extruder, so you go, why do I need it? I don't care if it's 2 colors. I don't care if it's 2 colors either. If you were printing 2 separate things, it could print a layer of blue and a layer of red and a layer of blue and a layer of red, which is obviously the colors I've chosen. But there are dissolvable print materials, and that's when it gets interesting. Either dissolvable by water, or there's other ones that's dissolvable by acetone or other slightly harsher ways to do it. And what that would allow you to do, and one of the examples I showed was a spring. Like I don't know if I would print a 3D spring, but you can't just with this just say print a spring. You'd have to build entire structures. You'd have to break them out. But if you had a dual extruder like this, and instead of having just a PLA or an ABS, you had the fill material, which I don't remember the name of right now, and I should, you could have it go and just fill in all the space that you want to have nothing so that we could wash it away. And that's when shit gets interesting, because then you could build structures that have tunnels through them, but it didn't print nothing there. It printed this white dissolvable substance and then covered the top. Whereas you would normally in 3D printing have to have all sorts of bridges and honeycombs to effectively fill the space and keep the structure together. And I didn't know when I was ordering this stuff that that was even a possibility. But that's the first thing I'm gonna order when I'm settled in my new house and I wanna use this printer. Because then you can make just an arch like this. But you can't really make an arch just like this with a hollow center if there's nothing to fill the inside. You'd have to have all sorts of bracing it. But you could just have it fill it completely with this white fill substance. And then when you take it off the board, off the plate, Just rinse it away. Just rinse it away using, I think, was it rubbing alcohol? I forgot what dissolved the other one, but there's a water-soluble one and another one. And that's when shit gets interesting. Now, some things I did buy to run this printer. I bought this Warner, and I got this on Amazon because I was looking, I tried to use a plastic scraper to get it off the bed, and the material they have for the bed, it comes with 3 of them luckily, so you can replace it off, and it's glued down. FlashForge 3D printer, do not touch hot, do not touch hot. And it's a rough material, and I've been able to get things off it pretty well, especially since I bought an actual, like, this is sharp. Like if I wanted to cut a scone, I could cut a scone with this. So get yourself a solid metal scraper and it'll save you so much time. Oh my God. Like, and here's another thing. You have to level the bed basically every time you print. And I knew that when I was first trying to get things off because I was jamming things under there to try to break the seal. I know some people say hairspray on the thing will also allow it to break off easier. I haven't tried that yet. But yeah, that comes with 2 extra ones. I haven't printed enough to damage this one. But I think eventually it will wear off, especially if you print in the dead center. I would recommend highly, if you're just printing small items, move them around, have 4 or 5 different locations, just so you don't wear out the center of the pad every time. Failures like this, by the way, and you have to see them happening and then go, something's fucking wrong. And I don't remember what, like I don't know, this is expecting ABS and PLA, so when I had 2 PLAs in there, this is what happens. The failing of this one, like here on the elbow, that's a failure of me setting the structures, because I didn't understand, like I just hit the go button and, you know, the FlashForge slicer does it. It's like, how about I support here, 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 and here, and you could draw extras to like her head and her neck. And when I started to print her head, it needed to have a big structure to hold her face in place. Because if we make it too thin, it's just gonna fall off. Because even though it's in there, it's in a warm environment, it's not quite hardened yet. So there's plenty of things that I have yet to learn as far as getting, like if I wanted to print this out again, step 1, I'd probably make the entire process slower. And then I would build structures or like draw structures up to her elbow because her elbow got messed. And I would definitely lift her off the plate that much. So there's just a few points that hold her down instead of 35 points along the leg. It really is an art. This is an art form. I'm learning to print with this instrument. And it's a beautiful instrument. This Creator Max is like, everyone's jealous. Everyone who knows anything about 3D printing is like, oh man, they sent you one of those? That's like $900, man, that's fucking awesome. And I actually took a time lapse of it printing something, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna edit it in, but like it does its job. The problem is that I have to tell it. It's like if Michelangelo and the Sistine Chapel, if he didn't actually paint it himself, he just yelled at people to do it. It's possible, but that's you. This has infinite ability to print perfectly on this. I don't even, what's the print surface? I'm gonna give you some specs. You probably would know. See, they're printing waifus too. We got a thing going on. So the print area, the build area in millimeters, because everyone is millimeters, is 227 by 148 by 150 millimeters. So if you know what a 120 millimeter fan looks like for a computer, that's diagonal. If you stood a 120 millimeter fan diagonal, this could print bigger than that in every direction, and 227 is the height. I can't even imagine what you would build at 227 millimeters high. I should build, you know what I would, are you ready? Here's my first thing that I'm gonna design in CAD, and you could use all sorts of modeling programs. I'm gonna build something, a very thin box, a wire box, the entire size of the build area. I would love to have done that before this video. If you tune into my live streams, which usually Wednesdays and Sundays, there'll probably be a whole big problem until about mid-September to late September because of the move and getting internet installed up there. I'm definitely gonna be using this printer for things. The one actual use that I've come up with since I started was I built a VU meter thing for my 0.1 subwoofer, but it was just sort of like a raw VU board that was I blue tacked to the side of my subwoofer. But with a 3D printer and the measurements of the gauge, I could have built a panel That comes out, angles it perfectly towards me, which is what I would have liked, hides all the wiring, and it could even, you could even go as far as like I have RCA sticking out of the mini DSP there. I could have it like just have circles so I could slide it over that. Now the modeling of that would be, if you find modeling fun, you're gonna be good. I find modeling slightly tedious. I've done it before. I was pointing my sim racing rig, which is no longer here. But when I did sim racing stuff, I 3D modeled half the stuff in that. And it even helps if you have just friends who can 3D model. That's if they can get you started, if you have an idea or vision and you tell them you have a printer, or if they have this sort of printer, they could probably 3D model things in like 25 minutes. And then you deal with the slicer for your printer, because you know how it works. It's coming. Actually, can I get on here and look? Now you could see, let me see if I can get in there. It's currently got, for like this stage, we're building this square bit that's hollow. And you can see the structures inside of it. Can I go inside? Let's go inside. It is lit with this nice UV light, which I'm not a fan of blue LEDs, but I think it actually does possibly help cure everything. Hi. It's fun to watch this. I got 9% battery life in this GoPro. Wow, I messed up. Okay, the battery's gonna die probably. So, oh, it says we're at 5% on this print, by the way, which a little bit of inaccuracy on this. We're at 21 minutes and at 5%. It'll probably finish this print in less than an hour, because it's not a very complicated one. I also bought these because someone was like, oh, you gotta buy this. And this is a generic glass sheet that you put on top, and it's easier to break the models off glass. Because you have a heated bed, you would take that off or leave that on, and then I had to go out and buy, and it was a pain in the ass to buy this on the internet. Individual binder clips to just binder clip the glass down. Because if you're gonna do a bunch, it comes with like 4 or 5 glass. And this way, you can just unclip the glass, take the glass with the 3D model on it out, put in new glass, and print another thing. So you can't like peel these off. They're 3M. You'd have to scrape. Then you have to re-level, because once you scrape, if you realize that you've been a little bit too abusive, then you got to re-level the bed. Which this is the one thing that I think this is missing. I've never had a 3D printer, but I think I'm missing an auto bed leveler. But with the glass, you could pop in and out, and you'd have to adjust the setup for the 3D printer, or at least in the slicer app, to accommodate for the thickness of the glass. So it's doable, it's doable. I mean, it's relatively quiet compared to other 3D printers that I've been around. So there's that. So yeah, like here's a couple failings I had when I put this down and it started curling up, or something else went wrong, it globbed there. And this is with the better filament, the atomic filament. Just, it was too thin. Like, look how thin this layer is. It didn't need to be this thin, which is why it curled up and failed. So it was just smashing against the bottom. Once you know the particulars of your printer, this printer, your filament, and your print, and you get all your print stuff sorted, you could avoid making failures. But you're gonna have failures. And I think 3D printing is it could change a lot of stuff. Here's all the tools to push out. This is all you need to take the whole thing apart, by the way, is like this. Actually, there might be one more tool, but that's basically it. And you need a snips to snip the filament on an angle. Let me show you the back. Oh, one last thing that I did modify. You could see this is the atomic stuff, and this is the FlashForge stuff. The FlashForge stuff, the spools are narrower, and there's an actual clip that goes clip, and it clips on and doesn't fall off. The atomic stuff has a wider spool, and what I did is I added these, which were just pucks I had and some screws, so that it would keep this from falling off. Because if this falls off during a print, you're gonna have a bad time. I'm also crisscrossing the red side to there and the blue side to the left extruder, just because we are smashing into the top. You can see the wear marks from this thing printing. So this hood is probably, I could either cut these down a ½ inch and it'll lower it, or this hood is just a little bit too low, which is why it's marring the top of this plastic. Because it never goes down. The actual print head goes around, but never down. So I could lower this slightly and it might help. But for now, it actually keeps them pushed into the unit. I had it where it's popped out once or twice. But yeah, I've had to add these safety holds. Not particularly for the ones for FlashForge, but Atomic uses a thicker, wider one, and it doesn't actually clip on. It just slides on, but it doesn't clip. So I added some little things with a very, very gentle. Those whole things, I would take one off, but I don't want to. Well, actually, the red one's not being used, so it just falls off like this. Come on. Hold, please. I probably can't get the angle. I can't get the angle because I have the here. This just slides up into the unit and down. And then there you go. So I mean, told you the battery was gonna die. So in conclusion, thank you FlashForge for allowing me to experience what it's like to 3D print. There's some trials and tribulations, but there's so much potential. As soon as I get the right types of filaments and I understand the concepts behind it, and you have to play with it. It's a toy. It could be absolutely used for serious scientific thingies, or it's a toy. And I don't recommend it to make, honestly, toothbrush holders, but adapter rings, joints, anything mechanical. I'm a mechanical guy. And anytime you can improve a mechanical thing with a 3D printer, do so. It's not there to print out. I just print little animals all day. I feel like that's a waste of time. Just go buy a little cheap animal. It's 3D printed. But, I mean, I'm not gonna tell you how to use your 3D printer. I'm just gonna advise you, get creative with it. Really get into, go play Gary's mod. There's three people who played Gary's mod: the coders, the artists, and the builders. And I was a builder. And I would have my artist friends make the things I built look pretty, and I'd have the coder friends make the things I built worked better than I could with electronics. And this is definitely, this leans slightly towards the building side, but you still need to learn software. As soon as you get the wetware and the hardware to merge, it could be a beautiful thing. Now I can't wait to print my own 3D headphones. 3D printed headphones with like base ports out the side. It's gonna be sweet. So again, thank you to FlashForge for sending this to me. I hope to put it to good use. I'll take my second one of these, which I'm printing currently, and I'll have a pair, and I don't know what I'll do with them, but as soon as you figure out the intricacies of printing your particular way, it works beautifully. This is the first one that printed out, but this is also a model that came with. I want to point that out. It's just looking for ABS and PLA, not just one or the other. And you can't tell. It came with very poor documentation on the models that are in there. They just say PLA, ABS, and there's cube, and the cube is the one that keeps failing. But again, I didn't cut the cube. They sliced the cube. I'd have to slice the cube once I know what I'm doing. So that's it. Links to this in the description. Links to things I talked about in the description. If you like this channel, and although I'm not gonna like dedicate myself to 3D printing videos, I guarantee you in the coming months and years, there will be 3D printed things I will have for all my headphones and audio gear, like maybe an RCA spacer. Like no one makes that, and that'd be too hard to like just manufacture out of like a piece of plastic. So boom, boom. Stay tuned to this channel. Subscribe Star and Patreon to support it. The $5 tiers lets you see these videos early, which this video has been delayed and delayed and delayed, so it's probably gonna only be on Patreon for about a week. A lot of other videos are on Patreon and Subscribe Star for about 2 weeks, so you can see them early, get ahead of the rush. So for $5, you see them early. For $5, you could ask me any questions about on platform, and for $5, you get into the yard sale, which the items that I no longer have in my home will be in yard sales, so that if a company sends it to me or I buy it, or someone donates to the channel, I'm like, all right, review's done, who wants it? Give me $1. and then things get sold to the patrons. There is a $10 tier that lets you join a private behind-the-scenes Telegram chat with a whole bunch of people, and that gets right to my phone, and you can ask me any question you want on that, and I will get back to you 7 times a day. 7 times a day minimum. I check I actually check it all the time. Great bunch of people in there. So yeah, hi-fi guides also. I don't know if we have a 3D printer section. We should, because I know we have a modding section for DIY headphones. So this should definitely go in there, something like this. Because I mean, I would love more people to teach me how to 3D print, because to people who know, it's second nature. It's like you ask someone how to play the clarinet, they're gonna tell you to practice. And if you teach someone how to 3D print, they're gonna tell you to practice. It's the same thing. So look there for help. Look at FlashForge's forums. I'm sure they have one for help. And hopefully you have a person that you can trust, just someone that'll talk to you slowly. Because playing piano. All right, that truck parking is a sign that I have to go. Thank you all. Thank you to my apartment, and I'll link to that wallpaper. I think I could find that, right? I'll link to that, and you can put that as your wallpaper on your computer. And yeah. Goodbye.